Greetings, everybody. It's Jim. Question for you. What's better than a demolition derby? Answer, a demolition derby with weapons. Car Wars have been around for decades, and with good reason. It's just a lot of action-packed fun to have. Plus, there's a lot of engineering skills trying to make your own your own car and balancing weights and space and everything in the car. That was a lot of fun as a kid as well. And whether you had the pocket box version of the 1980s with the little flat counters, or today you've been going around with the full miniatures version of the game, whether you get the intro set or the big double ace box, there is a lot of Car Wars fans around the world today that are having a lot of fun. Now, the demand was so high in the 80s that of course other people tried to make their own games. And of course, too different than Games Workshop with their game Battle Cars. They made two games, by the way, Battle Cars and Dark Future, their Mad Max version of the game. Okay, so basically there was a lot going on that demand was very high. Demand was so high, as a matter of fact, that there was a person that made a supplement for it that didn't even go through Steve Jackson. He made a lot of conversions for everything, and that is the supplement we're talking about today. Today I'm going to be talking to you about Turbofire. So one of the first things you're going to notice about Turbofire when you open it is some of the artwork is just phenomenal. It just comes out and grabs you. It's done by David and Jean Martin. Just terrific stuff. Here's another picture here. There's two main pictures, and these are them. Okay, but they are terrific. You'd almost want to actually get this just so you could take those pictures out and put them in your Car Wars book. Okay, so everything else in there's some nice pictures of cars and everything. Almost think that a lot of the cars look a little bit too much alike when you see them, but then again, that's just the way it is. Anyway, Turbofire is a 32-page supplement. They call it an adventure module. It's actually more of a adventure setting, I would say. One of the things that they say, which is actually true with Car Wars, is really not meant for role-playing in a sense, because very limited. Because, for the most part, you're just trying to stop some shenanigans from happening, somebody sabotaging your car before the race begins or something like that, right? There's always got to be some kind of intrigue, aka Speed Racer, right? But overall, this is an interesting concept that there is a Grand Prix going on in the world, okay? And basically, all these countries are involved. So there could be a lot of international espionage going on beyond just people trying to sabotage your car because they want to win. Now, this next part's pretty interesting because this came out 2 years before Dual Track did, which, of course, was a supplement to add just your basic traditional races into the mix, right? And I even tried to play a game. If you look at my video, I'll leave a link down below of my Car Wars scenario that I played and tried to make a race out of it. It's interesting, but there is some tedium. Now, as you can imagine, that tedium gets amplified if you have a lot of laps. And here these guys are trying to say that, these 200, 300 lap races are a thing in the future with weapons and such. And it's kind of hard to imagine it playing it the way that we did, with only so many cars on the road by a third lap, the idea of them being around for 300 is just almost laughable. But there is some interesting concepts here that might make that apparent. So how do these cars survive 300 laps? Pit stops. And it's an interesting concept because the way they have it described here is a blade of armor is no easier or harder to get off a car than a tire would be. They just take the old armor off, and they go and put the new one on, and the guy's back off into the races already. Okay, and so there's a little bit of a pressure luck mechanic with this because it's like you can make another lap because it is a longer process. It's not like the 4 or 5 seconds NASCAR, they got the tires on and refueled and you're out there and running. No, it just takes about 30 seconds or so. And you do roll for this and such. And it's pretty interesting. So basically, it has got a pressure luck aspect of it where you might want to take one more lap or you're not damaged that badly. Of course, the whole idea is when you are firing at somebody, though, what's the point of firing at somebody if they can just take a pit stop, is to force them into the pit stop so they lose time. And a lot of time. And if they just do press their luck, do you get them with a lucky critical hit and knock out something like some major weapon or just take out the driver itself, right? So I imagine these guys are constantly taking pit stops. And it's a pretty cool idea. So we could see that cars can last 300 laps, but the problem is I don't think I could. Not in the real physical world anyway. I mean, I played a good game that was a long time, and that took a couple of hours, man, let alone a 300 lap race. Oh, I don't know if I'd be able to make it. So what they do with Turbofire is they actually have an abstract system, okay? It's kind of like they're doing 10 laps a turn, basically, and you're rolling against reflexes or whatever stuff from whatever game you're using, and you're separating a little bit depending. And of course, at the end of every so often, basically anybody within 3 inches of each other gets to do combat, okay, as normal. And then you can decide whether you're going off into the pits for the next round or whatever. The good thing is you can abstract a 300 lap race. The bad thing is it doesn't really feel like you're playing Car Wars at that point. Now, that might be just fine for a filler, for, again, a role-playing thing if you're doing that, just to kind of, play it out. But it's not something I would say, okay, I can't wait for the next race. That's just a filler for something else, to get through the race or something like that, for some kind of storyline. But it's a nice concept, and it's there if you'd want it. So if you got 10 to 15 extra bucks, you can definitely purchase Turbofire on eBay, and it's an easy buy. The Can-Am games is the biggest reason to get it is because I got that new chassis in there. That's pretty interesting. Unless, of course, they use that in Car Wars. For all I know, I already got it in Car Wars. I just don't remember it. If you know, help me out and let me know in the comments down below. Now, there are 3 other books in this series, I believe it's 3, that I've seen on eBay. I didn't pick those up. Why? Because they were like 30 to 40 bucks a piece. And I don't know enough about them to make that kind of purchase, so I actually have to see them on PDF and see what they're all about first. But yeah, definitely the Can-Am game's the way to go. Everything else is pretty cool though. But anyway, guys, I'll see you next video.